Coming up on This Week in Computer Hardware, Logitech's G402 Hyperion Fury gaming mouse. Oculus Rift Dev 2 hands-on. Will it make Ryan puke? New Crucial M50 SSDs and a full review of Nvidia's Shield tablet. It's all coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twitch.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 278, recorded July 31st, 2014. New SSDs and an awesome accelerated gaming mouse. Welcome to Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, Twitch's weekly podcast that aims to bring you the most useful, most informative, most helpful, and most exciting news and, well, answers to your questions you might find in a computer hardware podcast anywhere in the world, even, ladies and gentlemen, Antarctica. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff today, so let's fire it up and get Mr. Ryan Shrout talking about Crucial's M550 2.5-inch SATA SSD. You did a roundup, or actually more accurately, our man in storage, Alan, did the roundup.
Right, but since he can't be here, I will filter his knowledge through my body, which means it will be lessened somewhat, but we'll get the gist of it, and that's really what's important, I think, for this.
In our running theme with SSDs in the summer of 2014, are they faster and cheaper?
They are faster and cheaper. They're not the fastest or the cheapest, but they are faster and cheaper. It's kind of an interesting discussion, right? The Crucial M550 line of SSDs is it uses the same controller as the Crucial MX100 SSDs, and the MX100 SSDs were released as like low cost, specifically for low cost markets. But what's interesting is that even though they use the same controller, there are performance variances and differences between the M550 and the MX100. So if you look at the MX100, it's available in, I think, 512, 256, and 128 gig capacities. But each of those steps down from 512 to 256 to 128 sees significant performance decreases along with it, right? And the reason is because as you rather than kind of use more, so an SSD controller can go faster if it has more memory to address simultaneously, kind of in parallel, right? And what Crucial did in the low cost line is they didn't make sure that the amount of actual NAND dies per drive was consistent, right? And so as a result, the 512 has more die in it. It can run faster than the 256 than in the 128. With the M550, they were much more careful with that, right? So this goes up to a terabyte, a 512, a 256, and a 128. And what they did there was the one terabyte, even though it will have the same number of actual chips packages on the PCB, if you open it up and look at it, then the 512 gig. What Crucial has done is they have used like 64 gigabit flash NAND, like actual die in those packages instead of 128-bit or 128 gigabit die in those packages. And so they kind of do that a little bit more as they step down the line. So the net result is that the controller has about the same number of actual die to access at the same time, thus maintaining performance throughout the entire family of the SSD. So the 1 terabyte and the 512 gig perform basically the same. 256 is maybe just a tiny bit down, and 128 gig is just a little bit more under that. Much less of a difference than we saw with the MX100. So that's kind of one of the performance differences, right? So like if you were to get the 512 of the M550 and the 512 of the MX100, they would perform very similarly, almost identically. But if you looked at the 128 versus the 128, you would find that the M550 version of that was actually much faster, right? Because of that difference. So kind of ironically, that performance, the differentiation between the product lines actually matters more in the 128 gig and 256 gig varieties than it does with the 512 or the 1 terabyte, because those would share kind of common performance elements. Also worth noting on this, so they're rated at up to 550 megabytes per second read and 500 megabytes per second writes, so significantly faster than the MX100. Because like the MX100 on their spec sheet starts, the write speeds, they say it goes from 150 to 500 megabytes per second. So that gives you an idea of how big that variance can be, right? So if they themselves in their spec sheets are saying write speeds are going to start at 150 on the 128 gig and go to 500 megs on the 512 gig, you kind of see what I was talking about there in terms of how the performance actually differs. Performance of this drive, if you look at it compared to like the Samsung 840s, the Samsung 850s, they've got the ADATA SP920, which is actually based on the same controller. You'll see that it's kind of in line with a lot of those parts. It's not as fast as the 850 Pro. It's not as fast as the Intel SSD 730, but it's pretty good. It's Micron's top-end controller that's currently available. And Crucial's been using it for a long time, so they were tweaking firmwares and making it so it was performing a little bit better than maybe the ADATA that uses the same controller would actually perform at. Maybe most importantly is that issue of cost. Ironically, so when we published this review, the 1 terabyte SSD was $471.
Not anymore.
Last night when we recorded our own podcast, it was $399.
Oh man.
So you can get a
$416.99 today.
Yep.
But competitive,
so last
right?
night. What's that?
I was saying that's extremely competitive. It's like 20 or 30 bucks less than the 1 terabyte. Samsung SSDs are selling for. I mean,
the
awesome.
Samsung 840 Evo 1 terabyte is going to be probably, I think when I looked last time, it was like 460 something, right? What was maybe more interesting is what Alan's kind of suggestion was last night is if the price difference between the 512, like two 512s and a 1 terabyte is fairly minimal, that you maybe go the route of going two 512s and running them in RAID 0, right? So you can get a 512 for $239, and that will be, you're talking 480 bucks instead of 416 for the same capacity, but you are essentially doubling your read and write performance if that's something you're worried about, right? So even if you can't afford $416, $239 for a 512 gig drive is pretty awesome. And then the 256 gig drive is $149, right? These are getting really, really, really cheap. The 128 now sells for $83. So, price per gig, you're doing better if you get the higher capacity. Of course, we kind of expect that to be the case, but asking Alan last night, kind of the end question at our discussion was, when it was $399 at the very least, is like, do you recommend, any other drive over this? And the answer was no, right? As long as that price is low, it's hard to argue with it, right? The 850 Pro is going to be a lot faster, but I think the 1 terabyte 850 Pro was like $600 something, right? And that's $699 actually, so $700 for the 1 terabyte 850 Pro. Now it's faster.
Part of what's funny about that is a year ago we would have killed for a 1 terabyte drive for less than $1,000. Like we would have been shocked and amazed. And now you're like, wow, the fastest drive on the planet from one of the most reputable, manufacturers on the planet is $700. That's just ridiculous, But then they do their more affordable, lineup for like 460. That M550 is selling for 416. I mean, it's a good time to be adding fast storage. I don't know if I'm ready for RAID 0 and SSD, but it's tempting.
That is kind of like all of the rage right now is people trying to talk about that. Even Intel is out there talking about RAID specifically on the SSD 730 series, because of the bottleneck of SATA 6, right? It's hard for SSDs to differentiate in performance as it is now. So how do you do that? Well, hey, if you take 2 of these, you can essentially double your reads and write speeds, which is true. And because of the reliability of SSDs and how it's been improving over the years, it's becoming more, less of a crazy idea to run RAID 0, right? Always back up all of your stuff, right? Stuff that you can lose, you shouldn't probably keep on, or stuff that you can't possibly lose and re-download. I wouldn't keep on a RAID 0 array of anything.
Well, it's also,
like
Synology's,
Steam games, you can just download that again.
I'll say Synology's doing like their disk station. They have a 4-bay disk station that's 2.5-inch drive specific. I mean, there's a lot of people that are starting to play around with. A lot of people started certainly in terms of high-end editing stations or 3D rendering and stuff. It gets interesting because you're looking at these crazy multi-bay 2.5-inch drive boxes that are basically dedicated 2.5-inch SSD aggregators, to use highly non-computery terms. But you get the idea is that you'll have these crazy RAID arrays where your writes are spread across multiple SSD drives simultaneously. I'm excited, dude. I can't afford any of it, but I'm excited to see the numbers that it's turning out. Well, you know what I mean? But a year ago I couldn't afford a 512 gigabyte drive, and now it's a really tough decision. Like, am I going to get a 3 terabyte drive for my machine, or am I going to go for a 512 gigabyte drive? And if I save my pennies for a couple more months, I can drop a terabyte in, install all of my applications with my operating system on an SSD, and go forth and take names and kick ass. So it's exciting. Mm-hmm. Speaking of taking names and kicking ass, you have spent the week living and breathing and rolling in and bathing with and presumably walking to the potty with the Nvidia Shield tablet and controller. Have you found the sweet spot for the high performance 3D tablet gaming world, since we basically decided that that's pretty much NVIDIA is trying to jumpstart sort of 3D tablet or high-end graphics gaming on tablets, or as we also, I think, described it last week, sort of the Oru/Amazon Fire with a screen built-in box. How are you feeling about it, like a weekend?
What I have come away from with this tablet is that it's a really good tablet. It is a good. Mm-hmm. It is a very good just a tablet. If you look at it that way, right. It's a little bit on the expensive side for a just a tablet, like a 16 gig tablet. $299 is a little bit steep for that. But like, it has front facing speakers, and there are surprisingly few amount of tablets that have front facing speakers. And I find this to be a crucial design choice at this point for me, for something that I actually plan on consuming media on, right? I'm tired of phones that have rear-facing speakers, which almost all of them do. If you take like the HTC One out of the discussion,
right?
And you do a lot of you're cupping your hand on the bottom. If you're in a noisy bar, you're cupping your hand around the side or whatever it happens to be around the back to actually get the audio to where it should be, which is your ears. So I like that. It's got the 1920 by 1200 screen is really nice. The brightness levels go really high, and they actually go really low as well. But the real, the reason you buy this particular tablet over any other tablet is that you're a gamer and you want to game on it.
Right.
I would say that. So the controller that we have here is also really, really, really nice. It's a really good gaming controller that's built to work with this particular tablet. I played through the entirety of Portal over the last week by hooking this tablet up to my TV at the house, and then sitting down on my couch and taking the controller out and launching the game with it, and then starting the game and playing it. And I had a blast. I also played 2 or 3 hours of the new Wolfenstein game for the PC, Wolfenstein: The New Order, and I was doing that by game streaming it from my desktop that was upstairs that has a GTX 780 in it or whatever, through the network wirelessly, through the tablet, and then I was again playing it with this controller while sitting on the couch, and that was a really good experience. The latency and input issues were really not there. It didn't have any problems at all with it. But you have to want to do those things, right? Like, you have to. The Android gaming market is not going to stand up on its own and be a shining knight, or a knight in shining armor, rather, for you need to buy this device because look at how awesome the Android gaming market is. It's just not going to do that. And I would say the same about the iOS gaming market. But what NVIDIA is trying to do is to get these types of games, Portal, Half-Life 2, trying to War Thunder, and getting developers to realize, hey, because the Tegra K1 processor that exists in this tablet can run full OpenGL, you can do more with this than you ever thought you'd be able to do with a tablet. And Portal and War Thunder and those games prove that. What they need to do is convince more developers of that, and maybe even help them convert those games over to be able to run on Android so they can play on this device and they'll operate, right? Because you're spending $299 on a tablet, $59 on a controller, $39 for a cover, which is too much money for a cover, even if it acts as your stand and stuff as well. So you're asking $400 for this package of goods, and it's a pretty good tablet. You could use it as a tablet, right? You can just use it as you normally would a tablet, take it with you on trips, take it with on road trips, use it throughout the house. But it stands out through its gaming features. And for $400, you can get an Xbox One or you can get a PS4.
Right.
And that's a much tougher decision and a much tougher call to make, because you kind of have an understanding of what the game library is going to be for PS4 and Xbox One. It's going to be better than what you're going to get in Android. And I think that's the kind of the drawback for NVIDIA here. If you have a GeForce-based PC and you like the idea of having a tablet, and then these cool Android games that you can play natively will be a bonus. And then, hey, maybe you want to play your PC games on your TV, but it's like in my house, it's way upstairs. So I don't really want to run an HDMI cable all the way down. And I don't want to move the PC down. I don't want to build another PC to put it downstairs to do game stream through or something. This makes a perfect device for that, right? So you can just plug the HDMI cable up, plug a power cable up, so you have extended battery life, obviously. Turn on your TV and play whatever game stream games you can play right through on your desktop PC. Play pretty much anything through Steam or Origin, and play it on your TV that way. So it's a great device, like hardware wise, build quality wise, performance wise. It's fantastic, and it has all these cool features that are like in and of their own right, not killer features each. The Android gaming market, not a killer feature. The game stream feature, not a killer feature. The ability to stream out to Twitch from your tablet, not a killer feature. Hooking it up to your TV, not a killer feature. But you can kind of combine all that, and you could see how people would be able to utilize this in kind of like their own gaming ecosystem. It would be, if somebody's saying to me, hey, what tablet should I buy? And they just want a tablet, I wouldn't recommend this. It's like, go get an Nexus 7, you save $100, and you're going to get exactly what you need out of a device. But if somebody's a real heavy PC gamer, and they say, what tablet should I buy? Look, well, there's a Nexus 7, or there's this if you want to do these things, right? And you kind of caveat it with that. I think it could be successful, right? I really do. And I kind of felt that way about the first Shield, and it wasn't a success if you look at the sales results there. But like in the week I've had it, 10 days I've had it, I played a lot more games on it than I thought I would, but hooked up to a TV, not like with a tablet sitting on my lap or on a table or something. So I don't know. I think the software needs to evolve to a point where games like War Thunder, that's not even out yet, could be a really awesome game. You get to, it's out on PS4. It'll be out on Android, through Tegra K1. It could be really cool. I feel like there needs to be more software there, and we need to see, if NVIDIA is trying to create like this secondary console market, or, it may become a kind of fourth player in the console market, right? By using the Android operating system and their Tegra K1 SoC as that platform. They need to prove to gamers that more is going to happen than what they're launching with, right? These kind of 8 to 11 specific Tegra K1 ready games, right? So I don't know. I really liked it. Have you used it at all? I know that you were asking about it last week.
Yeah, I haven't got a chance to get hands on with it. It's funny because I listened to you. You enjoyed gaming on it. I don't know that you enjoyed gaming any more on it than you would on your desktop, but you enjoyed the fact that you were able to play the games in your living room on the big screen TV. I mean, like it doesn't suck. It's a lot of money for what it is. It's a niche product. It's a niche product that NVIDIA would like to grow into. I think you're right. I think with all the sort of foora on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and the sort of everybody's trying to jumpstart the Android gaming community from Kickstarter projects to Amazon of all places. Why shouldn't Nvidia throw their hat in the ring? I just wish they'd kind of like, you know, I'm kind of half, like I half want them to like give up on the Shield controller, allow me to use like, you know, Xbox or PlayStation 4 controllers, you know, and put all of the technology in the Shield minus the screen into a, you know, $100 or $200 box that'll spank the Amazon Fire, you know. But it's a messy market right now. Ouya's got exclusive titles, Amazon's got exclusive titles, you know, and the majority of Android developers are basically making stuff for you know, little tiny phone screens, right? And then to complicate it, it's like, yeah, okay, I can stream my games from my gaming PC, but then I need a badass gaming PC to do that. It's interesting, you know, but I think it's early, and I think I think the tablet market right now is really tough, right? Tablet sales are down in a lot of areas from what we're hearing from different retailers, and it's, you know, not a cheap tablet. But at least it does what it's supposed to. The graphics performance is awesome, and we'll see. You know, that's about all we can say. You know, let's see a nice little price drop right before Christmas and see if they can take some names and kick some ass there. So you got hands-on with the Logitech G402 Hyperion Fury gaming mouse. Now, I have a lot of Logitech products in my life. You know, I've got a Harmony remote. I use at least 3 Logitech keyboards I use regularly. They tend to go with the single letter, triple number designation, but this is a Hyperion Fury gaming mouse, which you subtitled the opening to your review, "Give a Mouse an Accelerometer."
You like that?
What's going on here, man?
I was very proud of that title creation.
I like that title. I still like that title.
So this mouse, I'm actually using it right now during as we record the show. So it is a wired gaming mouse. It's fairly inexpensive. It's $59. It's got buttons on it, as you expect. It's got a wheel. It's a click wheel. It doesn't go into a free spin mode.
Sorry, I'm just like I don't want to interrupt your momentum here, but buttons on a mouse. This is not a real revelatory kind of thing.
Well, it could have been like an Apple mouse with no buttons. I don't know.
That was unusable. That was a horrible design.
This one has buttons, so it is usable.
You know what? I apologize, and I actually appreciate that you pointed out that it has buttons, because buttons really make for a much more enjoyable mousing experience for me.
And it's also kind of important to point out that there are a lot of the things that you hold up in the air and you would rotate and twist and turn that would use accelerometers and gyroscopes. It is not that. This is a mouse. Okay. This is a mouse first. It's got multiple DPI settings, right? It's got like the G logo there that glows and breathes as you, I don't know, you can change the settings in software, whatever you want to do. But the real interesting part about this is that it has what they are calling a fusion engine in it, which is a fancy marketing term for what they've actually done, which they've supplemented the standard optical sensor. So it's just an optical mouse, right? The G402 is what we're looking at. And it has, you know, if you know how optical mice work, the optics sensor is actually just taking pictures at, you know, 1,000 times a second or something like that. And it compares those pictures to each other to figure out how far you've moved and in what direction. Cool. But at some point, at some speed, the optical sensor can't work anymore, right? From the time it takes the picture to the time it takes the next picture, it recognizes no part of that surface, and it can't tell how far you've moved or what direction you've moved. And so the optical sensor actually fails. And depending on your mouse and the kind of driver that you're using, it will either just stop, right? The mouse, the mouse cursor will just stop, or it'll just suddenly look a different direction in a game or something like that. Now, what they have done is
for gaming, like especially in first-person shooters. You know, no. I'm just
you're trying to turn around real quick, and instead you end up looking up at the sky. Right? If you've ever done that and you thought, man, I don't feel like that was my fault, I feel like it was the mouse's fault, then here's your chance, right? So what they've done is they've supplemented the optical sensor with a accelerometer and gyro. So as soon as that optical sensor fails, the accelerometer takes over, giving data back to the system, right? And so what this allows you to do is, so around 115 to 120, the optical, 115 to 120 IPS, which is inches per second. That's very high. Your optical sensor stops working. And Without it, you would go into that kind of fail state. With this, it's continuing to measure how far and how fast you are going with those 2 extra sensors, and it's reporting back. So I was able to get up to 287 inches per second. You know, if you looked at that screenshot there, and in terms of just this is really kind of being dumb, where we had one of those 36-inch long mouse pads, and I was just like, okay, you know, you're prepping yourself and you move the mouse as fast as you can across the table, and that's how I was able to get 287. Now, if you do the translations, they say this mouse can support speeds up to 500 IPS, inches per second, which if you do the conversion translates into 28.4 miles per hour. So if you can move your hand 28.4 miles per hour, Logitech would like to talk to you because they have a marketing deal they want to work out. But
for the rest of us,
yeah. The truth is not very often is this going to happen to you, and chances are not for most gamers is this going to happen. If you game at like low IPS, if your mouse is running at low IPS levels, or I'm sorry, low DPI levels, right? So you need a large physical movement to move your character from front to back or to rotate 180 degrees or whatever. And if you're a really good gamer, professional gamers, or you know, people who just have more time than me to game, if you want to be very accurate with it, you might try to rotate 180 degrees very quickly and make a motion that exceeds the level that an optical sensor would be able to do. So this mouse would work for that. It was fun to play around with. I don't know, like I think what I might try to do is, you know, I've got some G-Sync gaming and stuff to do. Maybe I'll use this mouse. I'll use trying to get one of those large mouse mats that we were talking about before, and kind of have that software running in the background and keep track of how fast I'm moving my mouse just during kind of a normal gaming session. And do I even come close to that? Because Logitech seems to think that there are a lot of people that do. And then if they use this mouse, they won't be able to blame the mouse anymore. They have to blame something else. Move it onto the graphics card or the display or something, I guess. But you know, it's
I've
60
angered
bucks
the
as
gods themselves. Yeah, it's not an inexpensive mouse. It's not. I don't think I think it's 60 or 80 bucks away from the most expensive gaming mouse I've seen. And they're doing something beyond going, hey, you can customize the weight and the location of the center of the gravity of the mouse by switching our special, you know what I mean? Like when you get a big stack of like 10, 20, and 50 gram weights that you were supposed to balance the mouse out with. And I know people who swear by them, but it's interesting to see them do something beyond the usual, well, we've upped the DPI and we've given you the ability to customize it. I also kind of wish it had fewer. I'm not into mice with sharp angles. This one isn't one of the rudest, you know what I mean? It's not as bad as some of the Razer mice, but there's still a lot of edge going on there. Actually, you know what? It's not nearly as bad as it looked at first angle. That side view makes it looks a lot more aggro than it actually is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually, if like Alan uses like an old like Logitech G5 or something like that, it has a very similar shape to it. Like the place where the thumb goes is kind of indented some, which kind of makes it have that angular look. But in terms of just a normal mouse, like I've been using it for the last several days and it's been fine. Like it's been a good mouse in terms of productivity and doing Photoshop and editing and all that other stuff. It works great. So I don't have any other problems with it. So even if it's just a $59 mouse that has this kind of extra quirky gaming feature for you, that might be something to look at as well. So
okay. Yeah. Oculus Rift Dev Kit 2. Earlier this week, PCPer pointed out that the dev kits, the newer dev kits, which of course, to steal Jeremy's title, more pixels, less screen door, which is a big deal, right? Because they up the resolution, they've upped the response time, and the idea is that there is going to be less vomiting. Ladies and gentlemen, our very own Mr. Brian Shrout was subject to the desire to instantly empty his guts all over the nearest floor and or bucket when putting on the original Oculus Rift. You have gotten a little bit of hands-on time with it. Do you still have the urge to vomit upon motion? Am I exaggerating? I don't think I'm exaggerating a lot because you looked pained.
Yeah. So the first dev kit that I still have here, I did not have really good experiences with. And I was disappointed because I really, really, really wanted to like it, right? And this one is supposed to be improved. It has a 1080p screen instead of a 720p screen. It has a lower persistence display on it. It runs at 75 hertz instead of 60 hertz. It has less screen door effect. I've got ours right here. So if you want, I can, I think this would be a good for the thumbnail for the shot later. I'll just put that on. So this is how goofy you look when you wear the DK2, the Oculus Development Kit 2. It's more comfortable, I'll tell you that. It's a little bit lighter as well. One thing that you can't really see, if you look here, actually, apparently through this plastic are a ton of infrared lights. And Ken and I are trying to figure out, like, yeah, because if you look at it through an infrared camera, you see a bunch of dots, right, all across it and up top and on the bottom and on the sides that it uses. It comes with a camera that you mount on your top of your monitor. Yeah, there you go. So those lights are, I don't know how they're coming through, because if you look at the plastic, it looks like solid plastic. So I don't know what sorcery.
Maybe they overlaid an IR camera shot with a standard camera shot there.
Yeah, no, they definitely did, but like I don't see where those infrared emitters are on this device, right? Because they have to be, but I don't. Like I said, it's magic.
It's sorcery.
So it's better resolution. It's faster. It also does positional tracking now, so it has that camera on your monitor, and so it can tell if you, based on those IR LEDs, if you lean back, if you lean forward, if you stand up, right? It knows all of those things now that the first version didn't really know, right? And the benefit of that is that it's supposed to help you feel more immersed and potentially have kind of less aversion to the issue. I've only used it for probably 20 or 30 minutes since we got it in yesterday. Ken and Alan were playing with it too. I will say that I still felt a little bit of the nausea issue when using it, and I think what really comes into it is when you're looking in the VR kit, right? You turn your head and you look that way. You turn your head, you look that way, and you kind of start to walk. Like depending on the game controls, you will walk the way you're looking, or you'll kind of have like tank controls where you can look in a different way than you're walking, right? And developers haven't really standardized on that. But the idea of moving your head and then having the mouse also move your vision for you seems to be the thing that sets me off, right? Like my body does not understand the fact that something else is taking my vision and moving it. I also tried it for about 5 minutes standing up and just standing in place and like looking around and like rotating my body. Obviously you can't really walk anywhere with it because you're kind of tethered to a device. But the standing up, I felt much better about it. Like I felt no nausea and people were kind of moving around and it felt better. So there must be something else going on. I will say one of the coolest effects I had while I was standing up and I was wearing it. There's one of the demos where it's like a 2-story house and you go upstairs and there's like a balcony. And when I'm standing up, because of the positional tracking as well and the camera that could see me, I could literally like turn my head and look over lean forward as if I was leaning over the edge of this balcony where the handrail was, and you could look over and look down over it. And it was a very cool sensation because it felt very real at that point, even though the graphics were pretty crummy and you still get a little bit of the screen door effect because of the pixel density up in your face. But it's closer. It's a much closer. Software wise, we had a hell of a time getting stuff up and running. I felt like when we got the first kit, we were able to like download a dozen zip files, start them up, and they ran. With this, it seems like the SDK has a little bit more. It's much more complicated, so it's buggier, and some of the, like, I don't know, half the demos we tried that were supposed to be DK2 ready, development kit 2 ready, didn't actually start and run. And there's two display modes now. Like the first one, the one that the old one did, the old development kit had, was like it basically shows up as a secondary display. You set it to your primary, and that's where the applications start. The new way is when it's plugged in, it actually doesn't show up as a display to Windows, and the games know how to direct data to it, without having to use it as a display. So that way, you're not trying to look at your Windows desktop through the Oculus Rift goggles, which is not a fun thing to deal with. Anyway, so we were trying to figure out if we wanted to do like a video or some kind of overview of it today here at the office, and we decided that we didn't have enough time with it, that not enough demos were actually working. There was one we got up and running that was like the inside of the Millennium Falcon somebody had modeled, and you could walk around in, and then that was pretty fun. You could like go into the cockpit and look out through the window, and there were like X-wings kind of floating there, hovering around. It's really, really cool when it works right. And I still think the resolution is going to be the issue. Somebody in the chat said earlier that this is like, if you want a small 4K display, this is the place for a small 4K display. And that's absolutely 100% correct. But we don't have the small, inexpensive 4K displays. And, you know, the horsepower to drive them becomes much more expensive as well. Yeah, which brought us to this part. I don't know if you saw this. Did you see the iFixit teardown of this?
No, I did not.
So iFixit tore it down, and if you look right there, what Burke is showing you is that the display is not just a cell phone display. It is literally a Samsung faceplate display. It's the Galaxy Note 3 screen is what it is. Like, and it's just kind of like glued into place. Yeah. Yeah. It's weird.
Funny. I wonder, like, I was like, why would they? I'm like, you know, it must have made it really easy. It must have just simplified a whole bunch of stuff.
You know, keep in mind, this is not supposed to be the consumer version of this yet. It's still a developer kit. Although a lot of people who aren't developers like me are buying it to use it and play around with. But it's, you know, they're trying to make it as cheap as they can. $350 for this is pretty
awesome.
Inexpensive. You know, I mean, all things considered, the amount of technology that's in it and the amount of research that has been done in it. I felt a little bit better about paying that when it was going to like a small company that was trying to do new things. And now that Facebook bought it for $2 billion, if they were to put another one up for sale, I may be less inclined to just donate money for those things. You know,
they can develop their own crap on their dime. Gosh darn it.
Yeah. But hey, if you have a Galaxy Note 3 and you know, you break your screen or something, but you happen to have one of these nearby, now you know where you can get a replacement pretty easily. A 5.7-inch Super AMOLED 1080p. That's just hilarious to me. I don't know why. Like,
I'm just gonna go ahead and call that a nice hack.
It's still, I mean, it still has the cutouts for the microphone and the speaker and the other cameras on it, right? Like it's like, well, it would be easier if we'll just tell you what, Samsung, just keep the frames on them and ship them over to us that way. It makes it easier.
It's a nice hack, dude. Just let it go. It's a nice hack.
Hey, the whole thing was like that. So originally.
You already know the price, the selection, and the convenience of Amazon.com. And now you can help support TWiCH and the crew here at TWiCH with your Amazon purchases. It's easy. Just click through the Amazon banner at twit.tv/Amazon and shop as usual. That's it. It's just that simple. It costs you nothing extra, and anything you purchase helps keeps the lights on at the Brick House and help keeps us bringing TWiCH and the rest of the TWiT programming to you. So let's see, what have I purchased recently on Amazon? 64 gigabyte micro SD card. I have been shopping for a replacement turbocharger for my truck. Turns out about 260,000 miles and some erratic oil changes. And you too can make sure that the turbocharger on your Cummins diesel is worn out. And it's covered by Prime, so I get like a $75 turbocharger, a $1,300 75-pound turbocharger sent to my house, second day for nothing, right? Because I'm an Amazon Prime member. Of course, I use Amazon Prime Video constantly. And every month, at least until my youngest son is potty trained, big old bundle of diapers shows up at our door. The marketplace is cool. I'm a big fan of Amazon. I use it probably every week. Have you, sir, recently purchased anything on Amazon?
I probably use it every day, it feels like. I had to buy some new memory cards. I bought both SD cards and compact flash cards. We had a compact flash card that while I was trying to drag files from it to my computer, the computer locked up for about 15 seconds. And then those specific files I was dragging over, those pictures, were gone from everything forever. And I was like, okay, time to buy some new flash cards for this. So bought a handful of compact flash cards for all of our cameras around here. Bought some preamps for microphones. Burke knows all about our discussion around that stuff. And I was hunting on it today to find rolls of neoprene, cloth-covered neoprene for my 1 meter by 1 meter mouse pad that I'm trying to make. So,
which we were talking about that earlier too. They do have everything.
Yeah,
no, look, if there's a reason we constantly look up the availability and the prices of SSD, the latest in SSDs, GPUs, CPUs on Amazon. It's one of our primary sources because the deals are good.
Yeah.
The shipping's not outrageous. And if you're a Prime customer, like both Ryan and I are like us, if you is like us and has the Prime, you get everything shipped second day for nothing. Well, for your annual fee, but then you also get a giant collection of video, and that's pretty awesome too. Trying to think, what are the TWiCH picks up on the landing page? Let's see.
They have a Thunderbolt dock for MacBook Air and MacBook Pro, noise isolating earphones from Amazon or from Logitech rather, handheld home theater speakers and case for iPad 4, right? So that's kind of nice. It kind of adds those front facing speakers that I was talking about desperately needing on all of these tablet devices.
And the thing that looks kind of like an evil Christmas ornament is actually a outdoor water resistant Bluetooth portable speaker with microphone. So should you have the desire to scare everybody on the subway on your ride home, you can actually carry one of those around your neck.
That's kind of
really
cool.
Freak out the neighborhood. In any case, ladies and gentlemen, support TWiCH, help keep the lights on at the Brick House. All you got to do is go to twit.tv/Amazon and shop as usual, and you will be helping to support the whole crew. So seriously, click through the Amazon banner, twit.tv/Amazon. It's an easy way to support TWiCH. You can bookmark that page and just keep using it. There's even links for Amazon UK, Amazon Canada. And I'm going to say it one last time, twit.tv/Amazon, and we thank you for your support. So we should talk about, it's been interesting, right? Looking at what's been going on with AMD. They have released more FreeSync information. What, I mean, are we any more excited about FreeSync, or does it just still feel like, a running battle with Nvidia?
It's definitely still that. It is absolutely 100% still that. So it's interesting. This FAQ kind of just popped up on their website. They didn't come to the media with it and say, here's this information. If you want to disseminate it and ask questions about it. Right. And it kind of puts the project in a more interesting light, right? So we had talked about FreeSync and we first saw it at CES in January. And they talked about how, they took the idea for it to the Visa board, and it became the Displayport adaptive sync feature, right? So that now it had an official name from the Visa organization, and we thought, okay, well that's it. So now AMD cards will support adaptive sync, NVIDIA's cards will support G-Sync and adaptive sync because they will definitely do that, and then monitors will come out supporting it, and that'll be the end of it. But the FAQ kind of goes into stuff and kind of explains that there is a difference between AMD FreeSync and what is now the DisplayPort adaptive sync feature. For example, they say, I'm going to read a couple of these lines here. Project FreeSync is a unique AMD hardware software solution that utilizes DisplayPort adaptive sync protocols to enable user-facing benefits, smooth, tearing-free, and low-latency gameplay and video. So the idea that now FreeSync is a unique AMD hardware software solution based on adaptive sync, right? So it kind of gives it more of the impression that, hey, what we're actually doing is kind of creating a G-Sync competitor that may also be, kind of AMD exclusive, right? More, more like G-Sync than we had originally been led to believe. They have a question here about how is FreeSync different from NVIDIA G-Sync? They claim that there's no licensing fees for adoption, no expensive or proprietary hardware modules, and no communication overhead. There is a licensing fee for G-Sync. If you want to sell a G-Sync monitor, you have to license that from NVIDIA. The hardware is just an FPGA. I guess technically it's proprietary, but it's kind of part of the licensing thing. And then the communications overhead is interesting. AMD has continually said, when Richard Huddy was out here and did an interview with us on this, on the studio floor, he talked about, look, G-Sync adds, some X milliseconds of latency because of the way it works, and the DisplayPort adaptive sync will not do that. Today I was talking with somebody over at Nvidia, and they, I was talking to them about this FAQ, and they said that's categorically not the case. Like, I don't know how, like, it's not the case. Like, we don't add any latency into anything. So it seems like this is definitely more of a battle between AMD and Nvidia now at this point. Like,
right.
A lot of it has continued to be and will always be for all of existence, probably. But it's good for AMD to come out here with this information earlier rather than later, as opposed to kind of dropping it all on us at one time, I guess. And I will be curious now, as we're getting into August. Today's the last day of July. We had very specific claims that we would have prototypes here in our offices by the end of September. And what will that actually be like? And what will, FreeSync look like at that point? Because now, at first I thought FreeSync was just like a funny name and they would never actually use it. This was just kind of like their way to jab at NVIDIA and kind of get the consumers on their side because it's got the word free in it. But now it feels more like this is the project that we're going with. It's going to be a product. It's something different than what is just been proposed to the DisplayPort adaptive sync as that standard. So I'm very curious what this will look like in 2 months or 3 months or 6 months from now when we get into just past CES next year, which is fun to think about because CES is not that far away. So
don't say that.
Worry about that now.
Oh my goodness. I'm not even going to touch that thought. We're just going to move right on to the first viewer question of the day. Twitch at twitch.tv is the email address. CES, much like winter, is coming, but it's a ways out yet. In any case, judging from the pound notes in here, we have an email from the UK, and I apologize because we accidentally cut off the name in the script. It says, like one of the viewers last week, I too have had my power supply go bang, which scared the crap out of me as I was sitting right next to it at the time. I've been there. It's an awesome feeling, especially when it's like literally at ear level. As a result of the Big Bang, this has left my PC dead as a dodo after trying to get it working with a friend's power supply. Nothing better than a suicidal power supply that takes out the motherboard along with it. Says, I'm currently crawling the web to spec out a new PC. My question is, which CPU do I choose? The i7-4790K or the Xeon E3-1275 version 3? Both are priced pretty much the same, give or take £5. I'll be using this PC for work, spreadsheets, etc., gaming, 2560 by 1440, video encoding, and Adobe Lightroom. I intend to pair the CPU with an Asus Z97 WS board with a 16 gig Corsair Platinum of RAM, or 16 gigabytes of Corsair Platinum RAM, Corsair H100i for the water cooling, or the self-contained liquid cooling, Corsair AX760i OCC Revo drive for the boot drive, 5 4TB Western Digital Red drives in a RAID 10. That's unusual. AMD R9 290X or an Nvidia 780. I've compared the two processors on Intel's website, and I can't see much difference between them. Does the Xeon have some advantage over the i7 when it comes to video encoding and photo editing? Any help you can give would be very much appreciated. Keep up the brilliant work. P.S. Can you recommend a good uninterruptible power supply? Oh boy.
I'll leave that one for you, the UPS for sure. The processor, I had to go look because the Xeon parts are something that are outside of my realm of everyday knowledge, right? So the E3-1275V3 is based on, it's a Haswell part. It is a quad-core hyper-threaded processor, just like all the other Haswell desktop parts, the kind of the consumer-facing parts. And they have pretty much the same specifications otherwise, except for, in my opinion, the most important one, which is clock speed, right? The E3-1275 V3 is essentially a 4770K versus what he mentions here, the 4790K, which is a 500 megahertz default out of the box clock speed difference, right? So the base clock is 4 gigahertz on the Devil's Canyon part and 3.5 on the Xeon part. And then the boost clock is 4.4 versus 3.9 gigahertz. So I think the Xeon part, it's a Xeon in name only, right? It has it differs. It has like embedded options available apparently. It has ECC memory support. It does not have Intel wireless display support, so that's something it's missing. Unless you have a specific need for ECC memory, you should get the 4790K because it's going to be quite a bit faster. It's going to be noticeably faster with that 500 megahertz frequency boost that is just free out of the box compared to that Xeon part. So that's the 4790K is the best, like, mainstream consumer, like high-end enthusiast part. You know, if you don't get into the Sandy Bridgey, Ivy Bridgey, Haswell E stuff that's coming out, the 4790K is the part to get for sure.
Cool. Talking at power supplies, it's interesting. You're in the UK, so the brands are a little bit different, but APC is still there. CyberPower Value is still there. A couple brands I haven't heard of that I think are regional are Trust, Oxtron, and PowerWalker 6. These are PowerWalker 6 does not seem to be particularly beloved based on the reviews at Amazon UK, by the way, amazon.com/twit. But if you take a look at the best sellers in computer uninterrupted power supplies in the US, APC's 550 volt CyberPower is extremely popular. Basically, if you look at it, like out of the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 APCs. 1, 2, 3, 4, counting is hard, CyberPowers, and a trip light. I would tend to use all of these vendors basically have calculators that allow you to look at what is probably going to be the significant load from your computer between the processor, the GPU, the 4 hard drives, the giant monitor. Do that. Give yourself some padding. Aim to the heavy side, especially if you do a lot of serious work on your computer, to give yourself more time to save everything out and shut it down. I've been using APCs for years. I have friends that use CyberPower. Either one of them should be fine. And most people like Trip Light too. I know that's not particularly helpful. I generally buy APC because I've been buying APC UPSs for, 15 years and never had a problem. CyberPower does really, really well, and Trip Light has a lot of enthusiastic fans. Take a look at the amazon.co.uk ratings. I tend to, this is something that tends to help a little bit. If you go to sort of the average customer review, put in a value for the UPS you're looking for. It's funny, I guess Amazon's not nearly as popular in the UK because the number of reviews are not nearly as huge as they are here in the US. 236 for an APC 330 watt 550 volt amp, where we would have like 1800 here in the United States. But like I said, APC, they have great worldwide tech support. The products are solid, and again, err to the larger side when you're speccing out your UPC. Oh, and Burke points out that their editors use the APC Backups 550 volt amp, which is kind of like the classic. That's pretty much all the TWiT editors are using those. There have been many of those in my life over the years at many different offices. One last one before we go. Renee's got a question about an internal fan controller. And there's a link to the Corsair Link cooling and lighting kit. Renee says, some of the Hydros have a lot of extra fan headers on them too, and all are... Actually, I think that's one of your notes.
No, this was a note...
Suggestion?
We had a question 2 weeks ago about looking for small internal fan controllers that didn't have like 5 1/4 inch bay kind of interfaces or whatever, so they could control through software only. And that is apparently what the Corsair Link cooling and lighting kit. I had honestly kind of forgotten this was a thing, right? So it's a
$75
USB device
thing, but it's really cool.
Yeah,
Housed in extruded aluminum, mounting in a 3.5 inch drive bay, connects to the cooling and lighting nodes, Corsair Link compatible components and temperature sensors, communicating with your PC via USB 2.0 header on your motherboard, and basically lets you track just about everything inside of the system. That's actually really cool. It's not cheap, but it's pretty cool.
No, that's pretty expensive, but I like the idea that it connects to an internal header, so you don't have to run a cable outside of your system and back into a USB port or anything like that. Then you can control all those fan headers and temperatures, monitor those temperatures through software, right? You don't have to have any kind of big, ugly fan controller on top of, or inside, or on the 5¼ inch bays of your system. So it's called Corsair Link Cooling and Lighting Kit. I'm trying to see if there's any other.
There's like 8 fan headers on that.
Yeah.
It's $57 on Amazon.
Okay, that's a little bit
good for monitoring, but not very stable. Some of the issues with the software. People seem to actually like the hardware better than the software.
Okay.
So something to look at when you're looking at that one. Cool. Thank you, Renee, so much for the heads up on that one. That's pretty cool. Some of the Hydras have a lot of extra fan headers on them too, and all are controllable via the Corsair Link software. Fully automatic. I like that. We have to wrap this one up. Mr. Ryan Shrout, is there anything that's not under NDA that you can tell us about that is coming up on PC Per this week?
Let's see. This week, yes, we have ultra quiet graphics card, like a GTX 780, not a 680,
nice.
A 780, that is ultra quiet, cooler in design. It actually will run part of the way without even fans spinning at all, up to a certain temperature. And we have those ROG monitors, the G-Sync monitors from Asus, but I don't know exactly when we'll be able to publish on those. Hopefully sooner rather than later. And well, obviously I have the Oculus development kit too, the Rift development kit too. So hopefully we'll be able to do some fun stuff with that. Hopefully we'll see some software updates to allow us to play games like the Valve games that worked on the first development kit that no longer work on this development kit. And hopefully we'll be able to do some cool stuff like that as well.
Cool. It's kind of funny. Stubbs and I have been embroiled this week in what we are affectionately calling the Chromebook Challenge. She's on a Samsung, I'm on an Asus, or she's on an Asus and I'm on a Samsung. But we are running Chromebooks and attempting to do everything we can professionally on the Chromebooks. I, however, am not using the Chromebook right now because Skype Chromebook, not a thing. But that's a whole other conversation that you can tune into on Techzilla next week. Also, new Raspberry Pi B+. We did a review of that, and we've done our first build with it, which involves, well, I'm just going to say bathroomstatus.com. And if you want to find out how that was put together, go to Dytryn, DIYTRYIN.com. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another fine blended episode of Twitch. You can find Ryan Shrout at Ryan Shrout on Twitter. I'm at Patrick Norton. Twitch at twit.tv is the email address. And we want to thank you for joining us. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
We'll see you next week on Twitch.